Hi, I'm Claudine Wong from KTVU Channel 2. Welcome to a forum of candidates running for California State Assembly District 16. Today's forum is sponsored by the Contra Costa Clerk Recorder, Contra Costa Television, the League of Women Voters of Diablo Valley, and the League of Women Voters of West Contra Costa. We are recording these roundtables here in the studio of Contra Costa Television. Assembly District 16 includes the cities of Lafayette, Orinda, Moraga, Danville, and San Ramon, most of Walnut Creek and the surrounding communities, and the district includes part of Alameda County. The candidates are Rebecca Bauer-Kahan and Joseph Rube. We did draw lots before the show to determine the speaking order, so we will begin with Rebecca Bauer-Kahan. And I think it's best to maybe just start off with priorities. When you look at the district and what it needs, where are you putting most of your efforts and your focus?
Yeah, thank you. I want to first thank you for being here and helping us participate in this conversation, and Joe for joining us to talk about the issues that are so important to our voters. So I have to start with education. I am a mom of 3 kids. They're in our local public school. My baby just started kindergarten this year. And when I look at the education funding situation in our district specifically, we aren't able to meet the critical needs of our students and give them the education they deserve to prepare them for the 21st century jobs that they're going to face. So we have to continue to fight in California to raise all the schools, get their funding levels up so we can provide them that critical education. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention climate change. As an environmental lawyer and a mom of 3 kids that are going to inherit this world, it is so important that we as a state do everything we can to fight the climate crisis, especially in the face of the attacks from Washington, rolling back regulations on climate, make sure that we are doing what we can to protect our air, protect our water, and give our children a world at least as good as the one we inherited.
Okay, and I will have some follow-up questions on that, but I want to give you a chance to tell us your priorities before we kind of delve in a little bit deeper here.
For me in government, I think public safety is the number one thing. It's something the government can do for us is help us keep our areas safe, our cities safe, our children safe. If we don't have safe neighborhoods, although we do have a lot in our district, but if we don't continue to have them, we can't move on to the other things. So safety is my number one.
Okay, so I'll follow up with you first,
Sure.
and then we'll move back over. But when you're talking about public safety, and you're talking about we have staffing issues at local departments, we have funding issues, we have support and communication issues. Where do you think that we're really not hitting it well in order to improve public safety in the way that you want to?
I think supporting our police is the number one thing.
Money or staffing?
Legislation. You know, there's certain legislation that's come down the line that's kind of been anti-support, the way I read it, to our police force and our sheriffs.
Can you expand in terms of which way it's been anti?
A couple issues. There was a bill recently about facial recognition on the body cams of the policemen, and that bill made it tougher to use that. And again, we can maybe go through more details because I just saw the headline, but I think we should use all our technology. I serve on a local police commission advisory board, and one of the best things that we've done is we put cameras in each area of people entering and exiting in our town. So technology is amazing. I want to support our police force, our sheriff's office, and all their technology, including their body cameras and using facial recognition.
How do you feel about technology and public safety, and are we doing enough, and how are we supporting our public agencies?
And I think, Joe is right. Our police deserve and need our support. They work hard, they go out every day, they put their lives on the line to keep our community safe. And we do have an incredibly safe community, and that's thanks to our public safety. And, I'm honored to have their endorsement in this race and to be working side by side with them to continue to move legislation that builds the trust the community has in our public safety and also gives them the resources to do what they need. And that means looking hard at what our public safety system should look like, how it supports all of our communities and keeps them safer.
So is support for you in funding? Is it in legislation? Is it in staffing? I mean, where?
All of the above. So making sure they have the resources they need is, I represent a lot of small cities that contract with the Sheriff's Department, but some of the cities I represent also have their own departments. So each city looks a little different, but making sure that we're giving them the support they need to have the staffing levels to meet the needs that we have. And we've seen recently that we need more coordination amongst our small cities to cover the needs they have. How do we make sure the county has what they need to provide those services? But then also looking at legislation, being in conversations with law enforcement. How does this help you? What do you need? And that's something that I've done the last year, and I look forward to continuing to do.
Let's talk about the relationship between the public and public safety agencies. Where do you think that could be improved?
I just think it's about trust on both sides, right? And I think that our law enforcement wants to be in a trust relationship with our communities, and we're working hard to build that. So that means giving them the resources to do community policing, to be in our communities and building those relationships, and making sure they know the community and they can respond appropriately and build relationships, because I think it is all about relationships, because they want to do what's right.
And
they often
do you see a trust problem between the community and police?
In our district, it's small, but it always can be improved, and it's so important. In Alamo and on the advisory committee, we have a sheriff that is dedicated to Alamo, to us. I mean, a sheriff deputy. He's part of the sheriff's office. We have a Valley Station in Alamo, but he's our deputy, and he makes every function that we have. It almost seems like we have too much police, but he's a guy that really gets along well with the community. And actually, he says that is his number one job, is to be out in the community and getting to know the community.
All right, let's move to education. You mentioned that as in terms of funding and how it's run. I mean, you will certainly find a lot of people out there who have a lot of opinions on whether, especially with our public schools, enough services are being offered, enough of how it's being monitored and what's going on. Where do you see the biggest areas for improvement, and how will you get the funding to make those things happen? Because that is always an issue. Where do you take the funding from if you give it to education?
So a couple things. One is, I think that one of the most important things we need to be looking at is special education funding, and making sure that our students that deserve and will have special needs met through our special education, that the school districts have the funds to do that. And right now that's hitting the general fund, and we need to make sure we're moving more funds into that, so we're meeting those students where they are, giving them the education they need, but not draining resources and actually paying for those education needs they have. So I think that's a huge place that we need to be focused. And then you asked, where do we get the money, right? And that's an important question. And I think that there is a lot of work that can be done in the Capitol on making sure that our government is more accountable and responsible with our spending. And we spend an incredible amount in the criminal justice system right now. Is that all need to be spent? We need to look long and hard about where we're spending, how we're spending, and how we can move it to reflect the values of the state. Our state budget should be a reflection of our values, and education should be at the top of that priority list. We should not be in the bottom 10 in the nation in education funding, which is where we are right now. And so, we're introducing legislation to start looking at how are we spending our criminal justice money. Is it working? Are the programs we're spending a lot of money on getting us the results we need? Because if not, we need to be spending smarter.
Where does the money come from? Do you think education needs more money and more support?
Well, I don't know if we need more, but like Rebecca mentioned, it's where the priorities, and special needs is a big priority. But there's some things that I think we've overlooked in the recent years. After school sports, they've been cut down a lot because of financial reasons, but they play a very important role. So we should maybe relook at that after school sports. And then events that start before school, too, is very important, like chorus and band. My 11-year-old goes to Alamo Elementary, and fortunately, we're one of the top 5 schools in the state, in the top 5%. And the principal of that school, Principal Otomi, said one of the reasons that he thinks that we are in the top 5 is because of the before-school events. Students getting up, going to chorus, going to band, gets them up going in the morning and gets them thinking. Of course, chorus and band, it's like another language too, so it helps their minds work.
It's good for the brain. Let's talk about transportation. Trying to drive through the district or trying to get anywhere in the Bay Area, but also Highway 24 and 680, which are going right through the district, are tough. You've got Measure J, which is a sales tax. So we start with you. Where are your thoughts on transportation and where it stands and what needs to change?
Yes. I think, I'm going to go to the main point at the very beginning. Since the 50s, we've been a freeway nation, a freeway district, okay? And we can't overlook that. We can't jump from a freeway district into all of us taking buses and bicycles and so forth. I love, when I can, to commute on my bike. And I love to use public transportation, especially when I travel. But locally, public transportation in our district is very slow and very inefficient. If you go around our district and notice how many people are on our buses, we have these giant, beautiful buses, but we have 1 or 2 people on them. So I think there's a lot of inefficiencies in our whole transportation system.
So would you talk about would you support a sales tax or something to bring more money into it, or do you want to reorganize what is already there?
I want to reorganize what we already have.
Okay. How about you? Sales tax? I mean, your climate change, you already mentioned, is big on your list, so you'd like to see those buses packed and people on their bikes. It's a very difficult thing for people to do, depending on how far they're going, and we are traveling further and further for work. More money? More organization?
All of the above. So I think, one of the things is, so I moved to this district in part for BART, right? I was a BART commuter for a decade. It's how I got to the city, and I love public transit. Not only do I find it better than sitting, I hate driving, but it's also better for climate, as you mentioned. People sitting in their car and idling is not the answer to our climate change solutions. Transportation is one of the top things that we need to address in order to address our air quality. And so what that means is getting those who can get out of their cars, because we know not everyone can, out of their cars and onto public transit. So that does mean creating a system that works for everyone. So as you mentioned, I represent part of Alameda County, the Tri-Valley. We have a lot of commuters coming over the pass and into the bay to do their jobs, and there is not a seamless way to take public transportation right now, which is why we're working to get Valley Link built, to bring a train that will connect directly to BART so that those people who want to can ride public transit with ease and efficiency. And again, those people are then coming down the 680, they're coming down the 24. So if we can get people off the highways there, it will hopefully ease up everything. Contra Costa is working on an amazing program to get buses on the shoulders, make bus commuting more efficient so people want to use it. We did a lot of work this year on the Iron Horse Trail. It's turned into an amazing commuter corridor. So how do we get people off the 680 and onto the Iron Horse Trail? But as we look at the question of tax dollars, I think the most important thing is making sure that we're supporting measures that bring dollars back to our district. What we saw in some of the previous measures was that we would support these regional measures, and then the Silicon Valley would get a lot of money, and our district didn't see a lot of return on investment. And so what we need to be supporting is actual change here in our community that will increase people's ability to move, because it's both a quality of life issue and a climate change issue.
So Measure J, yes or no?
I support Measure J.
And would you give, in terms of how the state is handling transportation? Because, right, if we ask people individually about maybe BART or Muni or different agencies within the transportation system, but in terms of the state and how it's handling transportation and making sure that it's running smoothly, what grade would you give the state right now?
Ooh, what grade would I give the state? I don't think I'd give it a passing grade. No, we need to do more. And I think, like I said, I was a BART commuter for many, many years, and I know how it is. I mean, you need those people pushers now to get people into it. It's so crowded. It's not safe. It's not efficient. It's not reliable. So people are not going to take public transit. So we have to do better. And the state needs to be a partner in that. And that means a lot of things. One of the bills I carried last year was to change the way you can do construction contracts on off-highway projects, which actually will save an immense amount of transportation dollars and allow us to do more with our money. And that we had to do at the state level. But it supports our local cities and their projects.
C, D.
I'll go C.
What grade would you give it?
C minus.
C minus.
And I think I'm being easy, especially for people that are stuck in traffic.
I think some people would say, well, we would, and it's specifically on how the state and what role the state can be, because you can go after BART and say you should do it differently and we need new transit. You can go after all these different agencies. You can go after Caltrans and say the roads need to be fixed. But the state, in terms of its role and what you would do in office if elected, it's a C minus?
C minus, especially the last 20 years. There's something, and it's, I guess C is barely passing, but there's some things that they're doing good. We got to concentrate on who we are, and I think we're more right now we're more freeway people, highway people than we are bus people and bike people. But so in big major intersections, like they're doing right up here on Highway 4 and above 680. They're doing a major new intersection. And that's where you start, at the big intersections. And then the Valley Link, I think, is a great idea. It's definitely a major problem for our district, is people coming from Tracy area over to here. Yep. But I think we had to look at, too, as another freeway. I would love another freeway.
Oh, I don't know where do you put that?
There's a lot of green.
There's a green. I know you're in open space, and now we're
no, we don't take any open space, but no, there's some room, and we obviously you have to do that
That's a long-term solution.
It is.
In terms of
Yeah.
what you see. Housing and homeless, let's
Yeah.
switch to that topic.
Yeah.
In terms of how it affects the district, and then how we as a state really need to handle this situation that everyone agrees is a continual problem. The cost
Right.
of housing
Right.
and the problem of homelessness. Where do you see
Yeah. Okay.
that space?
Well, the two things: the homelessness problem, the immediate problem that we have, and then cost of housing. Those are two different issues. But let's take the homeless situation first. And actually, in our district, in our county, we're doing a fairly good job. I mean, we start with nice big houses and nice big lots for most of our cities, so we don't really have an urban problem here. But we do have a system, I believe it's called CORE in Contra Costa County, and we have a number, 211, to call. When you find somebody that's homeless in your area, you can call 211, and the county sends a member of their CORE people out. We have a center in Walnut Creek called the Trinity Center that helps homeless. So I think what the state needs to do, and maybe Alameda County can our three cities in Alameda County can look at, is what we do well, and which is CORE and the Trinity Center. What we do well here, and to expand it. Now, as far as housing costs, okay, I think homelessness is a multifaceted problem. It's partly due to cost, but that's only part. And the overall problem with the housing crisis is that the state needs to sort of get back out of things. We try to reduce regulation, reduce fees, let builders build. We don't want to build everywhere, and that's another issue about state doing the planning for us, and maybe we can talk about that later. But what we want to do is try to reduce the fees and the cost to build. We also do not want to cap rents, rent control, because that tells builders not to build, and that's the last thing we want to do.
Okay. Your thoughts on those two very big topics?
It's one of the things we talk about most in Sacramento, as you know. But the homelessness crisis is real, and it's at epidemic proportions, and so we are really focused on what we can do. And it means a lot of things, right? It means focusing on housing, but it also means looking at our mental health crisis and making sure we have enough beds to support those that have mental health needs in our communities, working hand in hand with our counties who are providing those services to make sure they have the resources they need to meet those individual needs. Addiction services, making sure those that are on the streets because they're struggling, we can support, and we need to make sure that we're building an infrastructure that does so. And then housing. I mean, we definitely have a housing crisis, right? The cost is rising. And that means a couple things. One of the things is we have to keep people from entering into homelessness. Once somebody falls into homelessness, they're homeless for an average of 14 months at a great expense to our government. So keeping those people housed is crucial to the conversation about how to prevent additional homelessness. And then housing, we need to continue to support growth. Our economy is booming in the Bay, which is a wonderful thing, but it means those people need a place to live. And so we don't need to push people out. We do need to increase that, but we need to do it in a smart way. And that is what some of my colleagues are pushing, policies that would tell us how to build and tell us where to build in our cities, and that isn't tenable. We need to be able to build our cities the way it works, and we as a region need to be focused on our jobs housing imbalance, because we keep building jobs down in Silicon Valley, which is fine, but putting them here where they then commute for an hour and a half to 2 hours at cost both to their lives and to our climate isn't a continued solution.
Do you think there is enough low-income and affordable housing within the 16th district?
No. It's an easy yes, no question.
Is the answer because cities aren't prioritizing, because the district isn't prioritizing, because it doesn't exist, because it's not being built?
We can't build it fast enough is the answer to your question. Our cities are building. Our cities are doing an incredible job. Lafayette, in just the 10 years I've lived here, has changed a lot with a lot of building downtown. Danville broke ground on an incredible project right near the freeway. San Ramon is talking about an incredible growth project right at Bishop Ranch at their new mall. So across the district, people are building. Livermore, I think, should be incredibly proud of having a 1-to-1 jobs housing balance. They have met every job, and there's been incredible job growth in Livermore with a housing unit. So our cities are meeting the need, but again, the need is increasing. The jobs have come, and we need more housing, and we need more affordable housing. And in part, we need housing so that people who work in our communities can live here. I mean, I grew up when my teacher's son was on my soccer team, and that doesn't happen anymore because our teachers and our firefighters and our police officers cannot afford to live in our communities. So we're working on that this year, too, making sure that we're moving forward solutions as a state that provides the ability to build housing for those folks.
How do you feel about the low income and affordable housing within the district?
No, we can use more. We have to do it smart. Can I touch on something that Rebecca said that I think is a really good idea? Live work. We have to do more of that. And as a district, as a state, we have to plan for that more and more. Creating, like you mentioned, Silicon Valley. Okay, that is our biggest driver in this area. And it always amazes me with all this high tech, why don't they have more satellite offices? They all have computers and they know how to work them. And we can move a lot of we can plan and prepare to move a lot of work to where people live.
Okay, we still need to have more space for them and more
Yes.
open units. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what the
Yeah.
vacancy
Now,
rate is in the district, but I
yeah.
imagine it's very small.
Oh, it's terrible, especially in Walnut Creek.
Yeah.
Walnut Creek pays some of the highest rents in the country. We have very nice apartments in Walnut Creek.
But it's still high. I mean, when you
Yeah.
talk about affordable housing, you
Yeah.
talk about people trying to
Yeah.
get in and stay in.
Back to more affordable housing, it comes back to regulation. I have a friend of mine that develops affordable housing, but he's being held back because of certain regulation.
Can we talk about the voters and when you guys are out talking to folks in terms of what they say, this is the most important, and really, are they changing in terms of engagement, frustration, cynicism? I mean, in the last election, there was a huge turnout, and every vote, as you know, in your race,
Counted.
legitimately counted, and it mattered that people mailed in ballots at a higher rate than before, and they were coming in. When you're talking to people, and when you're out there with them, do you feel like there are big changes you're seeing in terms of their priority and their take on how they're viewing this election and every race in it? I guess we'll let you start.
Yeah, I think there's a large number of people are very frustrated, and they don't feel that the state listens to them. And Pacific is sort of like the gas tax, and the amount of taxes we pay, it's not a big number, but the percentage of what we pay amongst compared to other people in other states is very high. So they feel that they're not listened to. They feel like they're taken advantage of a little bit. I have a lot of friends that have moved, but basically they're frustrated that it's not being responsive. Let me just throw in AB5, the gig working thing.
Mm-hmm.
This district has a lot of gig workers, not only
Yes.
in Uber and Lyft, but in music and
Theater
consultants.
and groups, yes.
Tons. And so that's something that the state went ahead and kind of changed, and I think for the state's benefit, and not so much for the people and the people in this district's benefit.
What are you hearing from people? I mean, certainly in your election, you unseated a longtime incumbent in terms of where voters are and how that has maybe changed or not changed over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing in voter turnout and activism is a real frustration, I think, right now with government, and government in Washington specifically, which is broken, and a level of partisanship like we've never seen in my lifetime. And I think that the voters really want to get back to a place where they feel like their values are being reflected in government and the people who represent them. And I think that is the work that we're doing here today by having civil political discourse and showing them it's possible and showing them to get out there. But they want to make sure that people are out there protecting their children from gun violence and protecting a woman's right to choose and fighting climate change. And we're all parents. We know that what we want most of all is to give our kids a world that they deserve, and that is what they want from their representatives, and they're going to go out there and fight for it. And I'm so happy they're turning out, because every single one of you should vote, and tell your friends to vote, because no matter what it is you believe, the people who should represent you should be your choice.
How do you think what you're doing in Sacramento is being viewed across the nation? As California, do you see California? I mean, certainly the governor has taken a stand on many issues, and the president has taken notice, and it's gone back and forth. Where do you see California's role in that moving forward, and what happens here in Sacramento?
I think we are leading, and we are leading in ways that Washington is failing us right now, and that we will step up where they fail. When they put the Title X gag order out and started to take away women's access to comprehensive reproductive health care, we are stepping up and making sure that in California, women continue to have access to comprehensive reproductive health care. As they roll back environmental regulations, we make sure here in California our air and our water is protected. We are facing crises, and they are not meeting them, and we will. And, you know, I think that we will continue to lead the world, and we should be a nation that leads the world. But if nothing else, California will be.
How do you feel about California's role in relation to the rest of the country and the stands that are being taken and what happens in Sacramento versus DC?
Yes, I think unfortunately California is looked at from the rest of the nation as very, very liberal, very, very progressive. And I don't think it helps. What I would like to do is talk about working together. If you look at the state legislature, they vote party lines. I dream of going to Sacramento and working on amending bills, getting them so everybody up there supports them. And so you have more, in the case of the assembly, more 80 to nothing, 79 to 1, okay? In our Contra Costa County, we have 5 supervisors. They're very different, but they tend, on the most of the time, vote 5-0. I think that would help with the rest of the country and with our constituents if they see us working together and finding common ground like we talked about. And those are the bills that we pass, the bills that we can find common ground on that will help our district.
Okay. In terms of you guys both feeling like we will see record turnout? I would imagine it's going to be very busy at the polls.
Yeah, I think so too.
We should always have record turnout in every election.
Okay. And in terms of the issues that do you think, and I'm looking for a kind of a one-sentence answer here, what distinguishes you guys from each other the most? Is it whether it's a topic or a position? What do you think distinguishes you the most from Mr. Rubé?
I'm a proven effective legislator.
And what do you think distinguishes you the most?
I've been a resident of this district for 40 years, and I bring a lot of common sense to what I would do in Sacramento.
Okay, so we are getting to the closing statements of this section. We want to thank our panel for answering some very important questions. Each of you will have 90 seconds now to make your closing statement. And we'll start with you, Mr. Rubé.
All right, thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure to be here, and I love doing this, and I think it's very important. And I hope everybody takes their time to look at the whole thing, too. That'd be great. But like I talked earlier, the number one thing I think is safety, and then second, freedom and liberty, freedom for us to be individuals and to do our thing without Sacramento's guidance. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is transportation. We all have been stuck in traffic. We see it all around us. I love to take my bike everywhere I can, but my job requirements kind of put me back in my car. So I think we have to realize that, work on major traffic things to help us get us better, quicker transportation systems. But overall in safety, if elected, I would like to change or repeal the sanctuary state law. I don't think that makes us safe in the whole state. We had the much publicized most publicized problem with Kate Steinle, and her father lives in Pleasanton. And if elected, I would work to repeal the sanctuary state law. Thanks.
Okay. Rebecca Bauer-Kahan.
Thank you, and thank you both for this conversation. I want to say that it has been the privilege of a lifetime to spend the last year representing this district, and I have worked every day to represent our values, and I will continue to do so. I went to Sacramento to work to take on the special interests, to make sure that I was fighting climate change and working across the aisle to get things done, and that's what I've done. We've succeeded in bringing money home to the district to support our community and build additional parks and really support the things that we love. I've protected access to education, and I've worked to prevent gun violence in our children's schools. Our children shouldn't have to face lockdowns every day. They should be safe when they go to school. And I'm proud to have done that work and look forward to continuing to do it. I also formed the first committee on women's reproductive health so I could protect a woman's right to choose here in California, against what is happening in Washington at a moment in history when that is so important. And so I'm proud to say that every single one of the bills that we carried and introduced received bipartisan support. I've worked across the aisle to do common sense legislation that makes our community stronger and makes us better. And I commit to continuing to do that for as long as you elect me. So show up at the polls, get engaged, learn what's going on, and I look forward to seeing you all out on the trail. Thank you.
All right, and we'd like to thank both of you, Rebecca Bauer-Kahan and Joseph Roubaix, for coming in. These are your candidates for the 16th Assembly District. And once again, we appreciate you coming in and spending your time. And for more information on the candidates, you can visit the website, votersedge.org. And to view this broadcast online, go to www.cocovote.us. The Elections Office would also like to remind voters to go online, check your voter registration status, very important. Consider if you'd like to switch to receive your ballot by mail. I'm Claudine Wong, and thank you for watching. And don't forget to vote on March 3rd.